Today for math, our goal is I relate decimals to equal division of wholes. So the big thing we're doing is decimals, and we are going to relate this to things that we already know. So to start, I want you to think about how are fractions and decimals alike and how are they different? So we learned about fractions last year, and we learned some things that were true and some ways that we can relate them to decimals. So I just want you to think about that. How are they alike and how are they different? So to start today, we are going to remember that fractions are anything that have a number on a numerator and a denominator. So like 4/8, 1/2, 3/7. So these are fractions, and decimals have a zero, our decimal point, and then a number. And then we say our decimals with the place value position. So this one ends in the tenths. So I'd say 3/10. And then I could say 27/100. So you'll remember these are decimals and these are fractions. So today to start, we're going to talk about how we can relate decimals to fractions. And we're going to do this by starting with the workbook page that's attached below for you guys. So the first thing that it says is that fractions and decimals are parts of wholes. So a fraction and a decimal still have to be equal parts of something. So in this first instance, they are showing us fourths. So they have one whole here, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4 fourths. And when you take 1/4, like they did right here, you can write it like this. So they have 1/4. Now, the way we relate this to decimals is we can think about money. So if I had $1 and I wanted to split it into 4 coins, I would end up with a quarter or 25 cents. So 1/4 is the same as 25 cents or 0.25. So that is the way to change 1/4 into 25, and this would be hundredths because my 5 is in my hundredths place. The second thing your workbook shows you today is about dimes, pennies, and then parts of pennies. So dimes, when we talk about dimes in dollars, there are 10 dimes that equal $1. So a dime is similar to tenths because it's 10 equal parts. So here we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, $1. So we have 10 equal parts. And if we were to take one of those, we would have 1/10. Now, if you think about your place value positions, and you'll remember that we have the ones place and then we have lines after it, my tenths place is right here. So if I were to write 1/10, I would write 0.1 because my 1 is in my tenth spot. And if I wanted to write 2/10, I would put a 2 in the tenth spot. And if I wanted to write 5/10, I would put a 5 in the tenth spot. So these would all be showing tenths. And then the second to last example here is hundredths. So hundredths, if we were to divide a dollar into 100 different coins, we would end up with pennies. And so 1 penny is 1/100th, or again, thinking about our place value positions, hundredths is right here. So I would do 0 and 0.1. So 1/100th. So this directly relates to that. So because it's in the hundredth spot, I write my number in the hundredths. Well, what if we had 10 hundredths? Well, if I'm thinking about my place value positions and this is my hundredth spot, I can't write 10 right here. So what I need to do is I need to move my 1 over here and put a 0 here. So it still says 10, and it ends up in the hundredths. And then the last thing that they wanted to talk about was the thousandths. We don't have a really great way to relate this to money, but it's like dividing each penny into 10. And thousandths would be if you had one part of 1 penny that was divided into 10, you'd put 1 over 1,000. And then using our place value positions, our thousandths are right here. So I would write 1 here and then zeros everywhere else. So an important thing to remember is that when we write a decimal, so if we're doing something like 1/10 or 6/10 or 97 hundredths, and we want to put these fractions into decimals, we need to make sure that we put our 0 and then our decimal point. This 0 indicates to us, hey, I have a decimal coming up, so I should pay attention. So this is 0 and 1/10. So you'll remember the decimal point says and, okay? And then here, I would write my 0 again and put my decimal point and 6 in my tenths place. So 0 and 6/10. And now for this last one, I would have 97, and I would write my 0 and my decimal point, 0 and 97 hundredths. So it's really important that we remember our place value positions. So we have our thousands, our hundreds, our tens, and our ones, which we've been working with since probably about 2nd grade. And then we have our tenths, hundredths, and thousandths. So if anything ends with thousandths, it's going to be in this place value position. This place value position will be included. So if I have 8 thousandths, I would put an 8 here. These would have to be zeros. And in order to show it's a decimal, I need to put 0 before my decimal point as well. If I had 47 thousandths, I would still have to end my thousandths place, but because only one number can go on each line, it's going to end here, and my 4 is going to go here. So your job today is to complete your worksheet that is attached. So I attached both the sheet that I just went over, this one, and I attached this sheet. You just need to do numbers 6 through 21 on this sheet. So your job is to put them into decimals. Remember that pennies are related to hundredths, and dimes are related to tenths. So for this first one, if I'm thinking about my place value position, this goes to the hundredths. So I know that it would go here. So I would write 0.07. Now let's skip to 16. If they say thousandths, I know it needs to now end here. So I would have to write the 6 there, the end of it, and the 1 here, and then fill it in with my zeros. So 0.016 or 16th thousandths. You have 3 word problems that you are going to work on. The first one says, if you cut a lemon into 10 equal pieces, what decimal number would 3 pieces represent? And then 2 more, one with hundredths and one with thousandths. Good luck. Please make sure that you upload your assignment back on to Schoology after completing it in Notability. If you need help with this today, please check in with Mr. Mitchell.